Just days prior on the planet Andoria, Supreme Commander Hydrus silenced the High Council with a single glance from his piercing yellow eyes. Hydrus towered over the other reptilian humanoids at 7 feet tall. "One of our deep space probes picked up a transmission," he growled. "An intelligent species ripe for conquest. I want their planet's resources." Hydrus slammed a clawed fist on the table. "To hell with caution. No primitive race can threaten the Andorian Empire. Ready the invasion fleet. 100 warships. We'll grind them to dust beneath our boots." Klaxons blared as the mighty Andorian fleet entered the alien star system. Plasma cannons primed and shields powered to maximum. Hydrus grinned when the scans picked up a small blue planet called Earth. This would be too easy. His grin vanished when the human's warning blared across his ship. The human cut the transmission. Hydrus snarled with rage. "Blast that planet to atoms!" Before the Andorians could fire, the fleet was rocked by massive explosions. Human warships hidden behind Earth's moon screamed out of the darkness with impossible speed. Their weapons tore through the Andorian shields like paper. The invaders were outmatched, outgunned. The humans had been preparing for this day. Now the Andorians would pay the price for threatening humanity's home. Earth's survival hinged on obliterating the enemy fleet to the last ship. Explosions rocked the void of space as the human warships unleashed their full fury on the Andorian fleet. The UES Prometheus, commanded by the battle-hardened Russell Morales, spearheaded the assault. Its advanced antimatter torpedoes punched through the alien ship's defenses, leaving trails of fire and debris in their wake. On the bridge of the AIS Imperator, Supreme Commander Hydrus slammed his fist against the armrest of his command chair. The displays showed his fleet being torn apart by the humans' superior technology and tactics. He had underestimated these primitives, and now his forces were paying the price. "Deploy the mega laser," Hydrus roared. "Crush these insects and their pathetic planet." As the Andorian superweapon began to power up, alarms blared across the bridge of the Prometheus. Morales leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied the sensor readings. "They're charging some kind of planet killer," he growled. "We can't let that thing fire. Helm, bring us about. We're going in." The Prometheus and a hand-picked squadron of UEDF ships broke away from the main battle, weaving through the chaos of the Andorian fleet. Enemy fire slammed against their shields, but the human vessels refused to falter. They had a mission, and failure was not an option. In the heart of the Imperator, Zygon watched the mega-laser's power levels rise with growing unease. He turned to Hydrus, his voice laced with concern. "Supreme Commander, even if we destroy the humans, our losses will be catastrophic. Is this truly worth the cost?" Hydrus fixed his second-in-command with a withering glare. "Victory is the only thing that matters, Zygon. We will not be defeated by these upstarts." As the mega-laser neared full charge, the Prometheus and its escort reached the Imperator. Morales stood from his chair, his eyes locked on the view screen. "Marines, you're with me. We're boarding that ship and taking out that weapon. The rest of you keep those bastards off our backs." Morales and his team of elite UEDF Marines stormed the Imperator. Cutting through waves of Andorian soldiers with ruthless efficiency, they fought their way to the bridge, where they found themselves face to face with Hydrus himself. The Andorian commander towered over Morales, a massive plasma sword crackling in his grip. "You dare to challenge me, human? I will crush you like the insect you are." Morales, encased in his advanced combat exoskeleton, met Hydrus's gaze without fear. "Bring it on, you overgrown lizard." The two leaders clashed in a fierce duel, their weapons flashing and sparking with each blow. Morales' exoskeleton granted him speed and strength to match the physically imposing Andorian, and slowly but surely he began to gain the upper hand. As Morales and Hydrus fought, the Prometheus and its squadron raced against time to destroy the mega-laser. They poured fire into the Imperator's hull, desperately trying to reach the weapon's power core. With mere seconds to spare, a volley of antimatter torpedoes found their mark, and the mega-laser exploded in a blinding flash of light. Across the battlefield, the Andorian fleet faltered as word of Hydrus's defeat spread. Leaderless and facing a resurgent human force, they began to turn tail and flee. But Morales, still standing over the fallen form of Hydrus, had no intention of letting them escape. "All ships pursue and destroy," he barked over the comm. "Let's send these bastards a message they won't forget. Humanity will never back down, and we sure as hell won't let anyone threaten our home." On the bridge of the crippled Imperator, Morales and Hydrus continued their fierce duel. The ship drifted powerless, a floating graveyard for the Andorian ambitions. Hydrus, yellow blood oozing from a dozen wounds, lunged at Morales with a roar. His plasma sword crackled as it slammed against the human's vibranium shield. Morales grunted, his exoskeleton-enhanced muscles straining as he shoved Hydrus back. The human commander had trained in a dozen martial arts, his skills honed to a razor's edge. But Hydrus was a force of nature, his rage and desperation fueling his attacks. The combatants clashed again and again, sparks flying as their weapons met. Then the Imperator shuddered, a massive explosion tearing through its hull. Morales and Hydrus stumbled, struggling to keep their footing as the ship lurched beneath them. In the depths of the Imperator, Zygon stood before the reactor core, a grim smile on his face. He had seen the madness in Hydrus's eyes, the lust for power that would doom the Andorian Empire. With a final prayer to the gods of his ancestors, Zygon plunged his plasma blade into the reactor, sacrificing himself to destroy the flagship and prevent Hydrus from escaping. As the Imperator began to break apart, Morales seized his chance. He lunged forward, his vibranium shield slamming into Hydrus's sword arm. The Andorian leader howled in pain, his weapon clattering to the floor. Morales pounced, pinning Hydrus to the deck with his exoskeleton's enhanced strength. Hydrus thrashed beneath him, his eyes blazing with hatred. "This isn't over, human," he snarled. "The Andorian Empire will never stop until we have conquered your pathetic species." Morales, his face a mask of determination, activated his suit's built-in restraints. Shackles snapped around Hydrus' wrists and ankles, rendering the Andorian leader helpless. Morales then tapped his comm, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. "Prometheus, this is Morales. I have Hydrus in custody, requesting immediate extraction." As the Imperator's hull began to breach, the vacuum of space clawing at the dying ship, a UEDF transport shuttle appeared. Its tractor beam locked onto Morales and Hydrus, pulling them to safety just as the flagship exploded. The shockwave buffeted the shuttle, its shields flaring as it raced back to the Prometheus. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets as news of the UEDF's victory spread. They had faced the Andorian threat and emerged triumphant, their homeworld safe from the alien invaders. But in the halls of the UEDF High Command, the mood was somber. Morales and his fellow officers knew that this was only the beginning. With Hydrus in custody and the Andorian fleet in retreat, the UEDF began to prepare for the inevitable retaliation. The Andorian Empire would not take this defeat lightly, and Earth had to be ready to face an even greater challenge in the future. The war was far from over, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. In the secure depths of the UEDF's classified detention facility, Russell Morales paced outside the interrogation room, his frustration mounting. Inside, the captured Andorian leader, Hydrus, sat stoically, his yellow eyes gleaming with defiance. For days, Morales and his team had tried every tactic in the book to extract information from the alien commander, but Hydrus remained uncooperative, his lips sealed. Morales glanced at the two-way mirror, his reflection staring back at him. The toll of the war was evident in the dark circles under his eyes and the new scars that crisscrossed his face. He had fought tooth and nail to defend Earth from the Andorian invasion, but now, with the enemy leader in his grasp, he found himself at an impasse. "He's not going to talk," Dr. Isaac Nakamura said, stepping up beside Morales. The brilliant scientist, known for his unorthodox approaches, had been called in to assist with the interrogation. "We need to try something different." Morales nodded, his jaw clenched. "What do you have in mind?" "We've been studying the captured Andorian technology," Nakamura said, his eyes alight with excitement, "and we've made a discovery that could change the course of this war." In the depths of the UEDF's research labs, Nakamura led Morales through a maze of gleaming machinery and bustling scientists. They stopped before a large translucent tank filled with a swirling, iridescent substance. "This," Nakamura said, gesturing to the tank, "is xeninium. It's the key to the Andorians' advanced technology. Their ships, their weapons, everything is powered by this element." Morales leaned closer, his eyes widening as he studied the shimmering liquid. "How do we get our hands on this stuff?" "That's the catch," Nakamura said, his expression turning grave. "Xeninium is incredibly rare. Our scans indicate that it can only be found on a handful of planets scattered across the galaxy, and the Andorians have been secretly mining these worlds for decades." Morales' mind raced, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. If the UEDF could secure a source of xeninium, they could level the playing field against the Andorian Empire. They could build ships and weapons to match the enemy's might. "Find me a planet with xeninium," Morales ordered, his voice filled with urgency. "We need to mount a covert mining operation, and we need to do it fast." As the UEDF scouts set out to locate the nearest xeninium-rich world, light years away on the Andorian homeworld, the High Council convened in a dimly lit chamber. The news of Hydrus's defeat and capture had spread like wildfire, and the councillors were in a state of upheaval. Malvok, a towering Andorian with a web of scars across his reptilian face, stood before the council, his eyes glinting with ambition. "Hydrus's failure is a disgrace to the Andorian Empire," he declared, his voice booming through the chamber. "But it is also an opportunity for us to seize power and reshape our empire in our own image." The councillors murmured amongst themselves, some nodding in agreement, others casting wary glances at the ruthless warlord. Malvok, a master of political maneuvering, had long sought to usurp Hydrus's position, and now, with the Supreme Commander in human custody, his moment had arrived. "I promise you glory and riches in the coming war against humanity," Malvok continued, his words dripping with honey and venom. "Under my leadership, we will crush the human resistance and claim Earth's resources for ourselves." As the councillors began to rally around Malvok, a sudden chime echoed through the chamber. A holographic display flickered to life, revealing a shadowy figure, its features obscured by a hood. "Lord Malvok," the figure said, its voice distorted and unrecognizable, "I have information that will be of great interest to you." Malvok leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Speak." "The humans have discovered the existence of xeninium," the figure said, a sinister edge to its voice. "They are planning a covert mining operation to secure a source of the element." A wave of outrage rippled through the council, but Malvok silenced them with a raised hand. "How do you know this?" he demanded, his suspicion palpable. "I have a source within the UEDF," the figure replied, a hint of smugness in its tone. "A traitor who has provided me with detailed information about Earth's defenses and the humans' plans." Malvok's eyes gleamed with malicious delight. With this knowledge, he could strike a devastating blow against the humans and secure the xeninium for the Andorian Empire. "You have done well," Malvok said, his voice thick with anticipation. "Continue to monitor your source. Keep me informed of any further developments." As the transmission ended, Malvok turned to the council, a predatory grin spreading across his face. "Prepare our forces," he commanded, his voice ringing with authority. "We will crush the human resistance and claim what is rightfully ours. The Andorian Empire will rise again, stronger than ever before." Captain Jake Maverick Thompson gripped the armrests of his command chair as the UEDF scout ship Raven descended through the atmosphere of ZX-479. The planet's lush green surface filled the viewscreen, an alien landscape waiting to be explored. Thompson's eyes narrowed as the ship's sensors picked up strange energy readings emanating from the jungle below. "Sir, I'm detecting a massive power source," Lieutenant Emily Reeves reported from her station. "It's unlike anything we've seen before." Thompson leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "Take us in closer, Lieutenant. Let's see what we're dealing with." The Raven skimmed over the dense canopy, its advanced sensors scanning the terrain. Suddenly, a glint of metal caught Thompson's eye. "There! Bring us down!" The ship settled into a small clearing, the jungle pressing in on all sides. Thompson and his team disembarked, their weapons at the ready. They pushed through the undergrowth, following the energy readings until they reached a massive stone structure, hidden beneath the foliage. "My God," Sergeant Nate Hawkins breathed. "It's some kind of ancient ruins." The team cautiously entered the structure, their flashlights cutting through the gloom. Inside, they found themselves in a vast chamber filled with advanced technology far beyond anything the Andorians or humans had ever seen. At the center of the room stood a massive xeninium refinery, its machinery humming with power. Thompson approached the refinery, his eyes wide with wonder. "This could change everything," he whispered. "With this technology, we could turn the tide against the Andorians." The team quickly set up a perimeter around the ruins, their minds racing with the possibilities. They began studying the alien technology, determined to unlock its secrets and gain a decisive advantage over their enemies. Light years away on Earth, Russell Morales strode through the halls of the maximum security prison facility, his face a mask of determination. He had received an urgent message from Hydrus, claiming that the Andorian leader had vital information about Malvok's plans and the traitor within the UEDF. Morales entered the interrogation room, his eyes locking with Hydrus's yellow gaze. The once proud Andorian sat hunched in his chair, his spirit seemingly broken. "You said you had information," Morales growled, his suspicion evident. "Start talking." Hydrus leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. "Malvok is planning a massive invasion of Earth," he said. "He has a fleet of stealth ships equipped with advanced cloaking technology. You won't see them coming until it's too late." Morales' blood ran cold at the revelation. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" Hydrus met his gaze unflinchingly. "Because I have nothing left to lose. Malvok has betrayed me and I want revenge." The Andorian leader took a deep breath, then continued. "There's more. Malvok has a traitor within your ranks, someone who has been feeding him information and sabotaging your efforts." Morales' eyes narrowed. "Who?" Hydrus reached into his prison jumpsuit and pulled out a small data chip. "The evidence is all here. Your traitor is none other than Dr. Isaac Nakamura." Morales stared at the chip in shock, his mind reeling. Nakamura, the brilliant scientist who had been instrumental in studying the Andorian technology, a traitor. It seemed impossible, yet the evidence was right in front of him. The UEDF commander knew he had to act fast. He ordered a team of special forces to apprehend Nakamura, while also sending an urgent warning to Captain Thompson and his team on ZX-479 about the impending Andorian attack. As Morales raced back to UEDF headquarters, his mind churned with plans and contingencies. Earth's defenses had to be fortified, and quickly. The fate of humanity hung in the balance. In the depths of space, Malvok's stealth fleet glided silently through the void, their cloaking devices rendering them invisible to Earth's sensors. The Andorian warlord sat on the bridge of his flagship, a cruel smile playing across his scarred face. "The humans think they are safe," he growled, his voice dripping with malice, "but they have no idea what is coming for them." Malvok turned to his helmsman, his eyes glinting with anticipation. "Set a course for Earth. It's time to show these primates the true power of the Andorian Empire." As the stealth fleet sped towards its target, armed with the knowledge provided by Dr. Nakamura, and determined to crush the human resistance once and for all, a sense of impending doom settled over the galaxy. The final battle for Earth was about to begin, and the outcome would determine the fate of two species locked in a desperate struggle for survival. Sirens blared through the halls of the UEDF headquarters as Morales burst into the command center. "Status report," he barked. "Dr. Nakamura has stolen a spacecraft, sir," Lieutenant Reeves replied, her fingers flying across the console. "He's attempting to flee Earth." Morales' eyes narrowed. "Scramble the interceptors. I want that traitor caught now." In the skies above Earth, a sleek UEDF spacecraft streaked through the atmosphere. pursued by a squadron of heavily armed interceptors. Inside the stolen ship, Dr. Nakamura's hands shook as he gripped the controls, his heart pounding in his chest. Nakamura's face twisted into a snarl. He couldn't let them capture him, not now. With a defiant roar, he wrenched the controls, sending his ship into a dizzying spiral. The interceptors followed suit, their weapons locked on the rogue scientist's craft. In a remote desert region, Morales led a team of heavily armed UEDF soldiers towards the wreckage of Nakamura's ship. The interceptors had managed to disable the craft, forcing it to crash land in the barren wasteland. As they approached the smoking ruins, a hail of plasma bolts erupted from the debris. "Take cover," Morales shouted, diving behind a rocky outcropping. His soldiers followed suit, returning fire as Nakamura's robotic bodyguards emerged from the wreckage, their weapons blazing. The firefight was fierce, plasma bolts scorching the air as the two sides exchanged volleys. Morales gritted his teeth, his rifle bucking in his hands as he took down one bodyguard after another. His team moved forward inch by inch, the sand beneath their feet stained with the oil and sparks of fallen robots. Light years away on the surface of Zex 479, Captain Thompson wiped the sweat from his brow as he stared at the holographic display before him. The Prothean database was a treasure trove of knowledge, but deciphering its secrets was proving to be a daunting task. "I think I've got something, sir," Sergeant Hawkins called out, his voice echoing through the ancient ruins. "You're going to want to see this." Thompson hurried over to Hawkins' workstation, his eyes widening as he took in the information on the screen. The Protheans, it seemed, had been locked in a centuries-long war with the Andorians, a conflict that had spanned the galaxy and threatened the very existence of both species. "The Xeninium cannon," Thompson breathed, his finger tracing the outline of the massive weapon on the display. This could be the key to stopping the Andorians. But as he delved deeper into the Prothean records, his heart sank. The Protheans had been on the verge of deploying the cannon when a cataclysmic event had wiped them out, leaving their greatest weapon hidden and forgotten on ZX-479. "Sir, we've got incoming," Lieutenant Reeves shouted, her voice filled with urgency. "Andorian ships closing fast." Thompson's head snapped up, his eyes locking with Reeves. "How long until they reach us?" "Minutes, sir. They'll be within weapons range in less than 10. Thompson's mind raced. They needed to get the Xeninium cannon operational, and fast. If Malvok's fleet destroyed the weapon before they could use it, all hope for Earth's survival would be lost. As his team raced to power up the ancient weapon, Thompson could only watch the skies and pray that they would be ready in time. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking. The sky above ZX-479 darkened as the Andorian fleet descended, plasma cannons primed and ready to unleash hell upon the human forces below. Captain Thompson gritted his teeth as he watched the enemy ships approach on the radar display. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had one chance, the Xeninium cannon. Thompson turned to his team, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. "Listen up, we need to link the cannon to the geothermal core if we want a shot at taking these bastards down. I'll lead a squad down there myself. The rest of you hold the line up here." As Thompson and his hand-picked team raced into the depths of the Prothean ruins, the battle above ground exploded into a frenzy of plasma fire and explosions. The UEDF forces took cover behind the ancient structures, their Prothean-enhanced shields deflecting the worst of the Andorian onslaught. But for every enemy ship they managed to take down, two more seemed to take its place. Lieutenant Reeves, her face smeared with dirt and sweat, shouted over the din of battle. "Sir, we can't hold them off much longer. We need more firepower." Major Hawkins, his eyes narrowing, barked out an order. "Deploy the Xeninium drones. Let's see how these bastards like a taste of their own medicine." From hidden bunkers beneath the planet's surface, a swarm of sleek unmanned combat drones burst forth, their Xeninium reactors glowing with an eerie blue light. The drones tore into the Andorian fleet like a pack of wolves, their advanced energy weapons slicing through the enemy shields with terrifying ease. In the depths of the ruins, Thompson and his team fought their way through a seemingly endless horde of Andorian commandos. the tight corridors and ancient chambers becoming a brutal kill-box of close-quarters combat. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, the acrid smell of ozone mixing with the coppery tang of blood. Thompson ducked as an Andorian soldier swung at him with an electrified baton, the weapon sparking as it grazed his armor. He retaliated with a swift kick to the alien's knee, the sickening crunch of bone echoing through the chamber. Another commando lunged at him from the shadows, but Thompson was faster, his combat knife finding the gap between the soldier's armor plates and burying itself to the hilt. As they pushed deeper into the complex, the resistance grew fiercer, the Andorians throwing themselves at the human intruders with reckless abandon. Thompson knew they were running out of time. If they didn't link the cannon to the geothermal core soon, the battle above would be lost. Finally, they reached the core chamber, a vast pulsing cavern of rock and ancient technology. Thompson raced to the control panel, his fingers flying across the alien interface as he tried to make sense of the Prothean symbols. Behind him, his team formed a defensive perimeter, their weapons at the ready. Just as Thompson managed to establish the link, a searing pain erupted in his side. He looked down to see a jagged piece of shrapnel protruding from his armor, his blood already beginning to soak through the ceramic plates. One of the Andorian commandos had managed to lob a plasma grenade into the chamber, the explosion tearing through their defenses. Thompson gritted his teeth against the pain, his vision swimming as he stumbled back from the control panel. "It's done," he gasped, his words thick with blood. "The cannon is operational." Above ground, the tide of battle began to turn as the xeninium cannon roared to life, its immense barrel swiveling to target the Andorian fleet. The first blast tore through the enemy ships like a hot knife through butter, the sheer force of the explosion sending shockwaves rippling through the planet's atmosphere. Malvok, his eyes widening in horror as he watched his fleet being decimated, pounded his fist against the arm of his command chair. "All forces, retreat! Retreat now!" But even as the Andorian ships began to turn tail and flee, Malvok knew he couldn't let the humans keep the cannon. It was too powerful, too dangerous. He had to destroy it, no matter the cost. "Divert all remaining ground troops to the ruins," he bellowed, his voice shaking with rage. "Destroy that cannon, even if it means sacrificing every last soldier we have." As the remnants of the Andorian ground forces stormed the ruins, Thompson dragged himself into the cannon's control room, his blood leaving a slick trail behind him. He knew he didn't have much time left. The Andorians would be upon him in minutes, and he couldn't let them take the cannon intact. With trembling fingers, he keyed in the self-destruct sequence, the control panel flashing red in confirmation. He slumped back against the wall, his breath coming in shallow gasps as the world around him began to fade away. Moments later, the xeninium cannon exploded in a blinding flash of light, the shockwave reducing the ruins to rubble and vaporizing the Andorian forces still inside. Thompson's body, along with the secrets of the Prothean technology, disappeared in the searing heat of the blast. The battle was over. The Andorian invasion had been repelled, but at a terrible cost. The UEDF had lost one of its bravest captains, and the xeninium cannon, their only hope against the alien threat, was gone. But even as the smoke cleared and the dust settled, the surviving members of Thompson's team knew that their fight was far from over. The Andorians would be back, and humanity needed to be ready. They had won the battle, but the war for survival had only just begun. The UEDF forces returned to Earth, their hearts heavy with the loss of Captain Thompson and the other fallen heroes. Morales stood before the sea of somber faces, his voice steady as he delivered the eulogy. "We will never forget their sacrifice. They gave their lives so that we might have a chance to live free from Andorian tyranny." In the command center, Morales and his team pored over the Prothean data, searching for anything that could turn the tide against the Andorians. Dr. Nakamura, now under heavy guard, worked feverishly to decipher the alien technology. "I've got something," Nakamura exclaimed, his eyes wide. The Protheans had a planetary defense system, a network of satellites that could create an impenetrable shield, but it requires rare materials scattered across the galaxy. Morales leaned forward, his brow furrowed. What materials? Nakamura rattled off a list of exotic elements and compounds, each more difficult to obtain than the last. Morales knew they had no choice. They needed that shield, and they needed it fast. He turned to his second-in-command, the newly promoted Captain Sarah Hawkins. Assemble a team, the best of the best. You'll be leading Task Force Phoenix on a scavenger hunt across the stars. We need those materials before the Andorians regroup. Hawkins nodded, her jaw set. We won't let you down, sir. As Task Force Phoenix prepared for their mission, Malvoc sat in his cell, his mind racing. He had underestimated the humans, a mistake he would not make again. Suddenly the door to his cell hissed open, revealing a group of Andorian operatives in stolen UEDF uniforms. My lord, the leader said, bowing his head, we are here to free you. Malvoc grinned, his eyes glinting in the dim light. Well done, my loyal servants. Now let us take back what is ours. The operatives led Malvoc through the facility, their movements swift and silent. They reached the hangar bay, where a UEDF stealth ship awaited them. Malvoc took the controls, his fingers dancing across the console as he plotted a course for the Andorian fleet. Alarms blared throughout the base as Morales received word of Malvoc's escape. He slammed his fist against the table, his eyes blazing with anger. I want him found now. Scour every corner of the galaxy if you have to. As Task Force Phoenix set out on their mission, and Malvoc raced to rejoin his forces, Morales knew that the final battle was fast approaching. He looked out at the stars, his heart filled with a mixture of hope and dread. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and he would do whatever it took to ensure their survival. The UES Titan shuddered under the relentless onslaught of Andorian weapons fire. Morales, his face illuminated by the flashing red warning lights, barked orders to his crew. Divert all power to the forward shields. Keep us on course for the destroyer. On the bridge of the Andorian flagship, Malvoc snarled with rage as he watched the Titan plow through his fleet, its armor battered but unbroken. Concentrate fire on their engines. I want that ship dead in space. The two flagships danced a deadly waltz, their hulls scarred and scorched by the ceaseless barrage of plasma and missiles. Fighters swarmed around them like angry hornets, their pilots locked in a fierce dogfight for supremacy. Down on Earth, the UEDF engineers raced against time to bring the Prothean defense network online. Sparks flew as they connected the final cables, their hands shaking from exhaustion and adrenaline. We've got Andorian infiltrators in the base, a soldier shouted, his rifle cracking as he fired at the shadowy figures darting through the corridors. The engineers ducked behind cover, their sidearms drawn. They knew they had to protect the network at all costs, even if it meant fighting off the saboteurs themselves. In orbit, the tide of battle seemed to be turning in the Andorians' favor. The UEDF fleet was being pushed back, their ships falling one by one under the relentless assault. Morales gritted his teeth, his knuckles white on the armrests of his command chair. Steady, he growled. We just need to hold out a little longer. Suddenly a blinding light erupted from the surface of Earth. The Prothean defense network had come online, its energy shield enveloping the planet in a shimmering cocoon of protection. Malvoc's eyes widened in disbelief as his ship's weapons fire splashed harmlessly against the impenetrable barrier. Impossible, he whispered, his voice trembling with a mixture of awe and fear. Seizing the moment, Morales gave the order. All ships focus fire on the destroyer. Titan, prepare for ramming speed. The UES Titan surged forward, its engines flaring like the heart of a newborn star. Malvoc, realizing his flagship was doomed, screamed for his crew to abandon ship, but it was too late. The two mighty vessels collided in a cataclysmic explosion that lit up the void of space. The shockwave tore through the Andorian fleet, scattering their ships like leaves in a hurricane. On the bridge of the destroyer, Morales and Malvoc faced each other amidst the flames and wreckage. The Andorian warlord, his once proud uniform torn and stained with blood, lunged at Morales with a primal roar. The two leaders clashed in a whirlwind of fists and fury, their battle a microcosm of the larger war raging around them. They traded blows as the ship disintegrated beneath their feet, the heat of the exploding reactors searing their skin. Through the gaping holes in the hull, Morales could see the nuclear missiles streaking towards the remnants of the Andorian fleet. He knew that, no matter the outcome of his personal duel with Malvok, Earth would be safe. With a final, desperate surge of strength, Morales grabbed Malvok by the throat and slammed him against the flickering tactical display. The Andorian's eyes bulged as he clawed at Morales' arm, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "This ends now," Morales growled, his voice barely audible over the roar of the flames. "For Earth, for humanity, and for every life you've taken in your mad quest for power." With a primal scream of pure hatred, Malvok slammed Morales against the sparking tactical display. The human skull cracked against the flickering screens. Malvok's claws dug into Morales' throat, choking the life from him. "Die, you filthy primate," Malvok roared. "Watch your species burn." Morales gasped for air, black spots dancing in his vision. His arms flailed weakly against Malvok's iron grip. The Andorian's eyes blazed with unhinged fury, spittle flying from his fanged maw. Suddenly, a plasma bolt seared through Malvok's shoulder. The Andorian warlord howled in pain, his grip on Morales slackening. Morales dropped to the deck, coughing and wheezing. Jan stood in the entrance of the bridge, a smoking plasma pistol in his hand. His eyes were hard, his jaw set with determination. "Enough, Malvok," Jan growled. "This ends now." Malvok staggered to his feet, yellow blood oozing from his wound. He glared at his former second-in-command with pure loathing. "Traitor," Malvok spat. "I'll rip out your hearts and feed them to the Rorgals." Jan fired again, but Malvok dodged with surprising agility. The warlord lunged at Jan, his claws slashing for the other Andorian's face. Morales, still gasping for breath, saw his chance. He hurled himself at Malvok, tackling the Andorian from behind. The two combatants crashed to the deck, grappling and punching in a desperate struggle. The destroyer shuddered violently, explosions tearing through its hull. Beyond the cracked viewports, the UEDF nuclear missiles streaked through the void, impacting the Andorian fleet in blinding flashes of light. Malvok and Morales rolled across the bridge, trading blows. Malvok snapped at Morales' face with his fangs, barely missing the human's nose. Morales pounded his fist into Malvok's wounded shoulder, drawing a howl of agony from the Andorian. With a burst of strength, Morales heaved Malvok off him and staggered to his feet. The warlord scrambled up, his eyes wild, and charged at Morales. Morales sidestepped at the last second. Malvok's momentum carried him past the human, directly toward the overloading reactor core. Malvok screamed as he plunged into the roiling vortex of unstable energy. His body disintegrated instantly, his atoms torn apart by the raging maelstrom. "Morales, we have to go!" Jean shouted over the roar of the exploding ship. "The escape pods!" Morales nodded, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He and Jean sprinted for the bridge doors, the deck buckling and splitting behind them. Flames and debris filled the corridors as they ran, the ship coming apart around them. They leaped through a wall of fire, their armor scorched and smoking, and tumbled into the nearest escape pod. Jan slammed his fist on the launch button. The pod blasted free of the dying destroyer, rocketing into the void. Moments later, the Andorian flagship exploded in a massive fireball, the shockwave buffeting the tiny craft. Through the pod's viewport, Morales watched the remnants of the once mighty Andorian fleet, limping away in full retreat. Burning wreckage and debris filled the void, a graveyard of shattered ships and broken dreams. In the distance, the shimmering energy shield of Earth's Prothean defense network glowed like a beacon of hope. They had won. Humanity was safe. But at what cost? Morales slumped back in his seat, his body aching, his heart heavy with the weight of the sacrifices made. The war was over, but the scars it left behind would linger forever. Beside him, Jan sat in silence, his eyes haunted. The Andorian knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. Rebuilding the trust between their species would take time, perhaps generations. But for now, in this moment, they could breathe, they could rest, and they could remember the brave souls who had given everything to make this victory possible. The escape pod drifted through the starlit void, carrying the two weary survivors towards an uncertain future, towards a galaxy forever changed by the fires of war and the unbreakable spirit of those who fought for what they believed in. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.